Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast, make sure you like this. Hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so glad to be sharing this platform with you. Hello, and thank you. For those of you that are already jumping on, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. This platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Kimberley McDaniel. Kimberley is here today to talk about the importance of forgiving the people of their past and our obligation as parents to do it better than our parents did. Kimberley believes that our life should be a limitless adventure. And with that idea, she will talk about how homeschooling your children can give them a completely different outlook on life. Welcome, Kimberley. I want to ask you, one of the biggest issues, and I don't know about your clients, but one of the biggest issues that I deal with clients is them understanding. They're like, I get it. Okay, got it. I get it. However, it's not that easy. Like, what do I do? What's the first step? Like, I have no idea how to get from where I am to where Coach Kim is mentally and emotionally. What are the steps? I don't understand.
Yeah. And
could you break it down? Maybe, a couple of steps as far as what you did to kind of get to where you are now mentally and emotionally throughout your journey?
absolutely. So here's the thing, when I deal with that, because I definitely do, when I deal with that, I also tell people before I even invite them into the relationship, this is where you are. This is where you say you want to be. Are you willing to pay the price? Right. So the price, it could be money, it could be time, it could be energy, it could be shift. So if you're not willing to pay the price, then you won't get to the result. You have to
Absolutely.
realize that, and you have to accept that, hey, I paid a price to get here. And here's the thing, if I keep doing what I've done, I'm going to be stuck.
Yeah.
And I need an outside force, like everything that I had to get to this point. I used everything I had, my knowledge, my information, my connections, and I don't like being here. I want to go past here. And it's like, guess what? There's nothing in your past that can take you past that, because that can only get you here. So it's wisdom to reach out to an outside source, well, it could be a book, it could be me, it could be another coach, it could be a counselor, it could be a wise person who has your best interests at heart. Let me say that again, who has your best interests at heart,
Yeah.
that, so that you can say, okay, how do I take the next step? And sometimes we make it so difficult, Sabrina. One thing is I'll say is, okay, make a plan, break it down. Let's just say in the 3 steps, break it down and do it. Like Monday, I'm going to start decluttering my house. You do it.
Yeah.
This is like, I mean, Nike, man, they're like, that was like a light bulb,
Yeah.
because
Genius.
it's the little things. And here's the thing I think about psychologically. I think that if you say, I'm going to wake up on Monday, I'm going to clean my house, and you don't, I think that on a psychological level, you're telling yourself, oh, I'm a liar. I can't be trusted, and I'm not a woman of my word. I'm not a person of
Yeah.
my word. So if that didn't work, then maybe not my house, maybe my pantry, maybe the first shelf. Break it down into small bites that you
Absolutely.
can do. Because what I found is that you'll clean that, let's just say one shelf, and you can say, wow, that didn't take as long as I thought. Maybe I can do two.
Yes.
Doing the little things, and that success breeds success. you feel good about it, and you continue, and then you add another thing and another thing, and you create a momentum. Because we know an object that's stationary will remain stationary until something comes along and pushes it in motion. You cleaning that pantry shelf, that's the motion. That's the beginning of the momentum, and that gives you, oh my gosh, that gives you your mind a different platform to start saying, what else? What else can I do? Ooh, what else can I do? So
Yes.
now you're seeking solutions versus being buried in the weight of problems. So you need to look up and out because solutions are there. Your brain is so amazing. Your brain is like, supercomputer times a million. It's like,
Yeah.
give me a problem. Just give me something. I want to swing. I can hit a home run. Just give it to me. Versus saying, well, how? Let's say, oh man, I can't get across town. There's no way I can get across town. You say that to yourself versus, wow, how can I get across town? Your brain will be like, oh, there's a subway, there's a metro, there's Uber, there's your auntie, you can walk. And your brain will just start giving you things in any scenario because your brain is a solutions finder and
Yes.
creator. It's almost like how some people are like, they're like Sherlock Holmes. It's like they're always like, oh, I want. That's how our brains are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I love that you're saying that because you know what? This is actually hitting really close to home for me because one of the things that I brag about is my ability to be able to problem solve.
Mm,
I'm like, give
yes.
me anything. I actually had the slogan for a while, like, give me 5 minutes, give me a problem, give me 5 minutes, I'll solve your problem for you. Like
Yes.
and that is something that like is mine. Like I can freaking solve
Yes.
problems. And I love that you are telling us that every person has this ability.
Mm-hmm.
Every person has this ability to be able to solve problems because that is how our brain works. I love that.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. And I'm sure you've seen the stereotype, right? The stereotype is that men are problem solvers and that women are, let's say it this way. They'll say if a woman comes home to her husband and she's like, and this happened at work and that happened, and the husband's like, well, honey, maybe you should, move your desk or maybe you should talk to the boss. And people are like, no, she just wants you to listen. She just wants to vent. Like in that picture, I'm the husband. I'm like, look, okay, you identified this. Let's fix it. Because all this talking about it is not because because
Exactly.
you'll come home tomorrow talking about it, talking. That doesn't
Yep.
do anything. It's
Yep.
moving the elevation, promote yourself to a level of, okay, now I move past that and let me, because really also you're going from peak to peak. You made it to the top of the mountain. You're like, oh, I made it. You're like, dang, is that another mountain? They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So get these skills in place so that you can,
Yeah.
figure out how to do, oh, another mountain. Let me solve this way. Let me do it that way. And it just gives you this whole toolbox instead of just having one hammer. You've got an entire toolbox of different things that you can use to bring solutions for it.
Absolutely. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and if we can teach our children, so even with homeschooling, we have people homeschool for so many different reasons. One of my colleagues has had a child, and I've seen this before, but it's an anger management issue, and so
Oh,
sometimes people are not wanting their kids to be in school for a certain reason, and other times they want homeschooling for what it can offer. We have found that in an anger management situation, if your child is in school, he or she may strike out in a way that's negative and then get the labeling and the teacher. It's just a whole bad thing, right? And so homeschooling, it's like, oh, we can take more time, we can help them talk through things, and they can, have better outcomes. The issue is that the child only has a hammer. Like when you're angry, you just have a hammer and you're like so mad. That's what you're going to get every time. That's your go-to. But
yeah.
when you can work with that child slash adult, a human adult as well,
Yeah.
and you can show, oh,
Um,
you can breathe, you can talk, you can meditate, you can think before you answer. It's like, wow, I didn't know I could do 10 things. I just thought I had a hammer. you know? So solutions are amazing. Yes.
that's great. And yes, I think hammer is a great analogy for that because that is what it feels like sometimes. There's,
Mm-hmm.
there's a hammering all over the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense sometimes. What's
Yeah.
the number one lesson you've learned about life?
The number one lesson I would say is it can be what you interpret it to be. It can be what you make it. I've seen tragedy befall two different people and them having two different responses. I've seen the same joy, the same great thing happen to two different people, and they have two different responses. I think you can engulf things and then you can rebirth them. So how you take it in, it depends on what's in here. So if you're bringing something to your space and you're just angry and full of pain and hurt and you put it back out, that's the moss all over it. But if you take something in and you love on it, break it down and figure things out and process it through, then that's going to reappear at a certain
Mm.
level. So the takeaway is, what is this? Like, this is all we have control over. This is it. This real estate right here, this is all we can control. And we aren't, all of us, doing a good job at that. And certainly not all 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
We all have our moments. So when we get control of this and then we show up, with that brand, it's always been a brand, even though that's a thing we call, we've always had brands.
Mhm.
Back in the day, they would say, you're running down the street and you're like, oh, you're one of those Jackson kids. I know, that was a brand. You had the Jackson brand or the Johnson brand or the Smith brand because people knew your family standard and
Wow.
they knew, oh, that's the expectation. Or why are you dressed like that? Why are your pants hanging down? Or why are your shoes on backwards? Your grandmother wouldn't accept. That's not who you are.
Yeah.
Right. So, what is your brand? What do you want people to know you for in the 70, my goodness, 70, 80, 90 years? It's going to come and it's going to go. And
Yeah.
so when you're gone, oh man, I remember when, that's to me a goal of continuing to let your light shine even when you're not here.
Yeah.
That you went around and flicked lights on. It's everywhere you go, you're flicking on a light. And when you go, when your final checkout, the lights are still flickering, and they're also passing it on. So there's still some of you in that, because you're still, I'm doing this because Sabrina was so kind to me. Because she was kind to me, I'm going to be kind to another person. And then that
Right.
person, because they were, and you're setting off this whole domino effect that you don't even know about. But
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to do that, because guess what? It could be negative. You've seen the picture where, oh, the man is mad at work. He kicks his dog. He fusses his wife. He leaves his child. He leaves and beeps and angry and traffic, and he gets to work and he fusses at his employee. And it's like, that's the negative side.
Yeah.
Choose, we can choose. Free choice is like this amazing gift that
Yeah.
we can use and implement on a regular basis, hundreds of
Yeah.
times a day, actually.
Yeah. Definitely. When you're doing homeschooling with your children, is there a certain portion a week where you're teaching them personal growth
Um,
or the concept
I,
of it?
I did different things. Like, I remember one curriculum that we used, and it was like, what kind of animal are you? And it was like, are you a helping animal? It was a whole curriculum on that, because I definitely wanted to move them from just the reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yeah.
So sometimes personal growth looks like not just serving other people, but how do I feel about serving other people? Like, am I doing it because it's a rote thing? I'm doing it because I'm obligated? Am I doing it because I want to be compassionate? And so, even to go through those modes, it's good to do that so you can even examine yourself in that. Right. And,
Absolutely.
and I often see in helping people, I can see, man, like the smile on their, not just on their face, but in their heart, because when it comes down to it, everybody just wants to be noticed.
Mhm.
Not like in bright lights, but they just don't want you to walk past them as if they weren't there.
Yeah.
Like, can you take a moment? Like, hello, So when a child does that, and here's a birthday card I made for you, or here's something, or that just, it's a warm sensation. It's a blessing. It's like humanity speaking to humanity, and to
Mhm.
be able to tie into that, to be part of that process, it's heartwarming for the child, and I
Yeah.
think it's something that they will remember and pattern, in years to come. Because it all, I look at things, I'm out, I see older people with shopping carts and stuff, and I'm like, I would want someone to help my mom. I would have wanted someone to help my grandmom. Like I want to
Yeah.
give goodwill so that it can even help in other areas, just putting that vibration out. So yeah, they get that. And I'm going to say this, and we'll see how it plays out. My son right now is researching being what do you call it? A kidney donor, an altruistic kidney donor, which means
I don't know what that is.
he wants to give a kidney
Okay.
to someone who he doesn't know. He wants to get on the kidney donor list
Oh
because
my.
there are 100,000 people who need kidneys and they're on dialysis on a regular basis. And
Wow.
it's like, well, I've got two healthy kidneys. Like, why wouldn't I give one of mine? And I'm like, gee. And I told him, I was like, why did I teach you to be so compassionate? But he's going through interviews with doctors and looking at the ups and all the, so I mean, yeah, so yeah, I think they have a bit of compassion, and it's definitely something that was in our household, even with other families. And that's, homeschoolers, people have their little groups. I've seen RV groups, I've seen camping groups, homeschooling groups. It's like when you find your clique, a lot of times you share that DNA. So it wasn't that it was just us, but the people we hung out with were
Yeah.
also, what else can we do? How can we serve? How can we connect? Right. Um,
Absolutely.
and you do that because you're selfless. You do that because you have been, freely I receive and freely I give. You know that, because I'm a veteran, I'm always going to say, you get all these great freedoms in America. You know that these freedoms are here. If you lived in another country, you probably would not have access to them. So because I'm here, because I have freedom, I can pour out and give freely to others. And
Yeah.
that's definitely something that we instilled in them, and hopefully they'll continue and they'll instill in their children as we all move forward.
Yeah. I want to ask, since we're talking about the lessons you've learned, what made you homeschool your children? Did you learn a lesson in your life as far as you not liking the school systems?
Well, I have a very good friend, elementary school friend actually, and she had goo gobs of children. They were homeschoolers. I'm like, what in the world? Like, just put them in school. What are you doing? And I learned as I watched her, and her children were so mannerly and respectful and happy. Like,
Oh,
children right now, I just see children just, I mean, I know they have the sports and they have access. But if you sit down and really talk about where you are and being at peace and having hope, like those are the type of real conversations that I love to have with kids. But her kids were peaceful, happy, and she never said, hey, you should homeschool too. She never said that. So, that was very appealing. That it's like, I'm just observing. And so here's the thing. So I had three children at the time. One was in a private Christian school, and we pulled her out. She graduated fifth grade, and she started homeschooling, and all three of us did it. And it was really interesting because I got a chance to see everyone telling me, why it's not a good idea.
yeah.
Did that, went through that circuitous road.
Yeah.
But I was with all these great thinking people who, oh my gosh, you would not believe the opportunities that we had. I'll give you one example.
Okay.
One time, we lived in Maryland at the time, in Baltimore. One of our homeschooling field trips, every time we went somewhere, like field trip, one of our trips was to go. Okay, first of all, we engaged people from our church. So people from our church gave us a trunk load full of school supplies. We headed out west. We were going to Mount Rushmore. We drove to Mount Rushmore, but we stopped in South Dakota and we stayed on an Indian reservation and we
Cool.
delivered these school supplies to the Indian students there. And we spent the night, and it was just an incredible interaction. And again, my kids, they had toothpicks in their eyes, like their whole experience in homeschooling was what else, what else, what else, more stuff, new ideas. And that's what I wanted for them always, that they would always see life through an open lens, because that to me reflects, if life is this big, maybe I too can be this big.
Wow.
Maybe I too can try this or try, like it's a smorgasbord.
Yeah.
I thought I would like this, but I didn't, and I'm still here. So therefore, let me reshift and make another choice and see how I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that helped to build confidence. And I would say that homeschooling is a journey that people would say to me, well, how long are you going to do it? And I was like, I don't know. This year, let's see what happens. Another year, let's see what happens. Let's see what. So we did it for 12 years total with my son. He did it from first grade on. And I will say that as I look back on it, I wouldn't change. I wish I would have been able to push even more opportunities into it. And that's what I learned, Sabrina. The big thing, one of the big things was the takeaway was not the stuff,
Okay.
but the experiences and the
Wow.
exposures and the opportunities and the networking. Sabrina, I don't know how to sew, but my aunt did, and therefore she was the chief seamstress who taught my daughters how to sew. I don't
Wow.
know. I don't know how to bake, but I met a chief culinary artist who, I'm pulling people left and right. What can you do? What can you?
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so they got to share in the graduation. It's like, hey, that part of me is in that. Did you make that dress? No, Auntie, I didn't make this dress. But that was the cool part about it, that it was about community. And I
Yeah.
still think community matters. And I don't know that we get that so much. As my kids were coming in the tail end of, oh, we're not just going out in the street to play and hang. Everything was like a play date. Like when I was growing up, we didn't get in the car, drive them across town, or drive to a park. We just went out front, ran around, and
Yeah.
enjoyed it. They were on the tail end of that. They didn't get that, and I think I miss that for children in this era.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I agree. I know even with my son, we've talked about that a few times, just the difference between us growing up and our children growing up. This doesn't necessarily relate to what you're saying at all. But them going outside and just playing
hmm
with the kids, that probably lasted until maybe my son was like 11 and 12.
yeah,
And then like the social media and the computers just kind of took off, at least
yep,
where we are. And
yep,
probably from age like 13 on, which is like not normal, I don't feel like, just completely entrenched in gaming because their friends were on the game.
yep,
So they're still conversing, they still have their friends, but they're all at their own house,
yeah,
meeting
yeah,
online. So, yeah, things are evolving slowly. And I appreciate what you're saying about homeschooling and community, because I think that that is so important. We need to get back to that for sure.
yeah. I know I was at my oldest daughter. She was, the spearhead basically, and of course she always wanted stuff as an older person. She was like, oh, I want a Facebook page. And Facebook was just coming into, popularity. And we were like, oh no, you're not getting a Facebook page until you're 16 years old. And she didn't. And neither did our other kids. But now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it has to be so different today
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's just a different platform.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just
Totally.
so I'm saying that you're going to have to, for those who are homeschooling, you're going to have to be creative in how you approach, how you move forward, where you put the boundaries. Because now as an adult, oh my gosh, the other thing was PG-13 movies, and well, so and so's watching it. How come I can't see it? And I'm like, no, you're not doing it. And now as a young adult, she's like, Mom, what was I in a rush for? I didn't need any of that stuff. And we just laugh about it, So talk about perspective. Now that
Yeah.
she's an adult, she's like, oh man, kids don't need to see that. It's too much. I'm like, you think? Do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, totally. I do that. I wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies at
Mhm,
all. And I
mhm,
don't think I saw my first, I think I saw one rated R movie all the way up until I was probably like 23 years old.
mhm,
It
mhm.
was Pretty Woman. That was
Yes.
rated R. Can you
Yeah.
believe that?
Yes.
But people will ask me sometimes, they're like, "Oh, have you seen this in this movie? Have you seen that in that movie?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, if it was released anytime between when I was 0 and
Yes.
23 or 24 years old, no, I haven't seen it." And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, are you serious?" I'm
Yes.
like, "Yeah, like I just wasn't allowed to growing up, religious for religious reasons." And then
Yeah.
I just carried it on. Like I just there was a point in which I realized that watching those sort of movies did nothing for me
Mm,
mentally. Like it just like it was a burden for me, like
yeah.
emotionally to watch those. So I just
Yeah.
never really did. And it probably wasn't until my 30s when I finally was
Mhm.
like, whatevs.
Yeah.
But, just wasn't really something that I appreciated. Why did we start talking about this? Why am I telling you this story?
Oh my goodness. I don't
Uh,
know, but I relate. I get
oh,
exactly what you're saying.
that's
Yeah.
too funny.